Okay, this is the template I use to create the solutions for each individual problem. So I think I assumed in the last lecture note on the actual, not in the last lecture note, but in the last video on the diluted EPS case that was part of the homework, 5 million of the bought A shares, stock dividend 20%. I think this was 20 conversion ratio A and 40 conversion ratio B. It doesn't really matter. But when you use this, this is where you'll input your assumptions. Then we go over to basic EPS and it calculates it automatically. And in this case, it updated the adjustment factor is 1.2. Here's the stock split right here. 20% of 14 million is 2.8 million. The 2 for 1 or the stock dividend, 20% of 14 million is 2.8 million. The stock split is the 7 million. And maybe I should bold the ones that are built into the formula here in terms of the assumptions. Okay, so maybe even make them red, so those are the assumptions. Okay, and so the weighted average shares end up being 18,166,667. Now we had 60,000 of net income and cumulative preferred that accrues or accumulates 5 million a year. It was, if I remember correctly, 1 million times 5% times 100 par. So let me just go over, look at that. Cumulative preferred 1 million. There it is. Okay. So we didn't care about the declaration. So the numerator for basic EPS is 55 million. There's the denominator. And the basic EPS is 303. Now, here's diluted EPS. And this worksheet is set up to rank things automatically. But what it does is first calculate the numerator effect. I don't know if I can write on this. Let's see if I can. But how about that? Let's see. So I'll just write over here bond A. And maybe you saw it on the other one, but we'll do it again. So bond A. Let's get the facts here. 10 million, 6%. So bond A. 10 million times 6% times 1 minus the tax rate of 0.6. And 10 million divided by 1,000 in each bond. So in parentheses, that's the number of bonds. And the conversion ratio, let me go back to these assumptions. Conversion ratio A was 20. Okay, conversion ratio A was 20. So this is 360,000. 10 million over 1,000 is 10,000 times 20 should be 200,000. And hopefully that looks familiar to what I did on paper before. And that should be $1.80 per share effect. When you do these, you do want to save the numerator and the denominator. You're going to use them again if they're anti-dilutive. Okay, so bond B, and I don't know, let me choose a blue pen. Bond B is, if I remember correctly, 12 million times 4% times 0.6, 0.61 minus the tax rate. But it was only outstanding, and maybe I didn't account for this here, June 1, so 7 months of the year. So let me step into this formula, and I did not. How about that? Oh, I have some messed up other, must have had another 12 million, 7/12 times 12 times 0.04. Thinking your homework. 7, oops. Let me go back and put this in parentheses 7/12. It's outstanding, not for the full year, but only 7 months of the year. And this assumption B5 is the conversion ratio. Okay. So let's get back to the 7/12 here, 7/12 here. times 12 million over 1,000 times a conversion ratio, I think, of 40, which will equal 168,000 all over 280,000, which equals 60 cents. Okay, so the warrants, let me do the warrants. Now we already tested those. Those are dilutive because the average market price was above the exercise price. So the numerator is 0. That's not the big mystery. It's that, let's see, it was 10 was the market price, 4 is the exercise price. So here's the ratio times 2 million, and that equals 1.2. Okay. Now that we have them ranked, here's what we do. And this is in the Anti-Dilution Revisited. We did one of these problems. You ranked from lowest per share effect to highest per share effect. And you start with basic EPS. And you add the warrant first, but it's 0. But you had 1.2 million, and now your denominator is 19,366,667. So I'm calling it DIL1, dilutive 1 is 284. Now the per share effect of bond B is 60 cents. So you keep going. It's lower than dilutive 1. You keep going. You're going to add bond B numerator of 168. Add bond B denominator of 280. Now you get 19,646,667, and diluted EPS drops a little more. It's 281. The 180 is still below that, so keep going. Bond A is 360 added to the 55,168 is 55,528, and from the one above, 19,646,667, you're going to add the bond A 200,000. So now you have 19,846,667 and a ratio of 280. And all this formula does here is pick the minimum of those. So let me switch back to the select. And you see it just picks the minimum. So of these three calculations. So diluted EPS for GAAP is the minimum of the diluted EPS calculations. It's a worst case scenario. So whenever you read a financial statement, you get basic EPS is what actually happened. Diluted EPS is the worst that could have happened. So you know what was likely to happen, or likely the value is somewhere in between. But it's really not a bad treatment by the FASB, because it gives investors the range right on the front page of the income statement. Okay, so that's it for the homework for EPS and basic and diluted EPS.